Hey, just a little message before we get started. I offer one-on-one coaching to women for breakup recovery and dating. So if you're interested, just send me an email at tracy@tphtherapy.com. That's TRACIE@tphtherapy.com. And let me know if you're interested and I can give you information. We can hop on a very brief call to see what your needs are, either around dating and or breakup recovery. And I'm really excited to help you on your journey. Hey, I'm Tracy Pinnock, and welcome to the Bitter to Better podcast, where I talk all things love and life that help women live better after breakups. I'm glad you're here, and let's get into it. In today's episode, I'm talking about my sanity-saving systems. So things that I do to help run my life and reduce stress as much as possible in the process. And it's not that everything I'm doing is revolutionary. It's not that it's all things that no one else is doing. It's just more about kind of bringing it all together in this one episode. And there will likely be kind of addendums and updates to this process over time as I find more things or figure out new things or try new things or get advice and suggestions from other people. But here are some things that I have realized are helpful for me in managing my life. I'd first like to say it's really about streamlining, delegating, scheduling, and planning. So streamlining all parts of your life that you can by developing routines and processes that help you not have to think about what you need to do next or how you need to do it, and that help you do it in as efficiently as possible. But also delegating tasks, to paid help, to friends or family, to automated systems, things like that. Scheduling, so actually blocking out time in your life to do certain things, and planning, sitting down and figuring out what needs to be done and when. And maybe all of that should be done in the opposite order that I just mentioned it, but I would say those are 4 things that you want to be thinking about: streamlining, delegating, scheduling, and planning. For me, it starts with some sort of basic wellness routine. And this shifts at different times for me, but at baseline, I like to get up an hour earlier, an hour before I need to wake up my children so that I can have that hour of time alone. And sometimes it may be the only hour of the day that I get time alone or to myself, whether it's because the other hours I have my kids or I'm working, or maybe I'm socializing, things like that. So I try to wake up at 5:45 a.m. each day, and I definitely have my coffee. Sometimes I read a book, sometimes I listen to law of attraction content. There were times where I was doing yoga, but I just take quiet time and peace time to not have to do anything during this time. So I don't use this time to start prepping for my son's day at school or any of that sort of stuff. I use it to just relax and be at peace. So let's talk about chores, errands, and tasks. So pretty much the dreaded to-do list. There are a couple of things I want to say about this. I actually conceptualize the to-do list as 2 to-do list. There's the need to do versus the want to do. So if you take all the things, you could have 50 things that you need to tend to and get done in your life, and you put them all on this one general to-do list, but which then of course feels overwhelming and paralyzing and stressful and anxiety provoking. What I suggest is that you actually kind of go through and audit that to-do list and see what things on that list are things that you actually need to do and in a certain time frame or in a certain way versus the things that you more want to do it a certain way or a certain time frame. So for example, my own personal example, there was a time in which I felt my bathroom needed to be deep cleaned every week. But I realized that trying to do that every week was causing a certain amount of stress, and I came to realize it was unnecessary stress because what I had to ask myself was, well, if I generally wipe up the bathroom one week and then maybe the next week do more of a deep clean, then will everybody be okay and will the world keep on turning if I do a deep clean every other week? maybe even once a month? And the answer was yes. So I changed my idea of the bathroom needing to be deep cleaned every week. You can apply this to any task or chore in your life, but it's helpful to identify any of those tasks that you may be doing the most in. Laundry, maybe you wash twice a week, let's say, because there's so many clothes, or if you don't, someone in the family will run out of socks or underwear or something like that. Well, you might want to stop and ask yourself, if the laundry piece is stressful for you, do I need to do laundry this often, or are there other ways? Are there alternatives? So if, so-and-so would run out of socks if I didn't wash twice a week, maybe the answer is buying more socks. So just taking a moment to look at your to-do list and identify any things that you may be doing to an intensity or on a deadline that really doesn't suit you and your lifestyle. The other thing about this is what we need at one point in our lives versus another, and what works at one point versus another changes and shifts. So maybe you had a certain routine of how you did laundry or cleaned the bathroom before you had kids, or before you had 2 kids instead of 1, or when you were in a partnership and a romantic relationship versus being single, or when your job was different, or your work hours were different, or your health was different. Insert any things that change our lives, and recognize when you may sometimes need to make a shift to what you were used to doing. The other thing that I live by is I schedule my to-do list onto my calendar. So I'm someone who keeps an electronic calendar, like a Google Calendar on my phone, but I also have a paper calendar. I use a focus planner, and I will link anything that I mentioned in this episode. I will link in the show notes. But I love this planner because it has you break down your life day by day. You can break it down hour by hour. It gives you a new to-do list for each day and has all these things that are very useful in organizing and planning your life. You don't have to necessarily use a focus planner to do this, though. In the show notes, I am linking a stress management video that I have, and it's like the first thing that I give to my clients around stress management, time management, to-do list, all of these sort of things. And I highly recommend you watch it. And in this video, I give detail, step-by-step detail as to how to do this calendar exercise, where you pick a day each week, let's say Sunday, where you map out your whole week. That means you write in this calendar every doctor's appointment, the hours you want to sleep at night, your work schedule, when you plan to work out, when you plan to do some form of self-care, the birthday party you are attending, if you know you want to do laundry that week, what day, what time, all of that stuff. Because this helps you recognize a number of things. It helps you recognize what time you do and don't have, because we're always saying we don't have enough time. But sometimes we do have chunks of time in our lives that are not dedicated to something, but we will come to realize that when that time period comes around, we still don't do the things. And so I suggest that there are 4 other things that get in the way, besides of not enough time, 4 other things that can get in the way of us doing things that we need to do. And in this video, I go into detail, but it's pretty much there's time, but there's also energy. So sometimes I have the time, but I don't have the mental or physical energy. There's also clarity, which means maybe I realize I have an hour of free time in my day, and that comes up and I have the energy, but there's so many things on my to-do list and I have not organized and prioritized them that I spend that whole time running around in circles and spinning and getting nothing done because I'm trying to decide what to tackle first. Then there's also discipline and motivation. So we oftentimes are not motivated to do the things we need to do. And there's this quote that says, "You will not always be motivated, therefore you must be disciplined." And so that's where discipline comes into play. Discipline are the routines and plans that we have in place to still do the thing. So I may not be motivated to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I've put a plan in place to do that. And if I follow through on that plan, I will get the results that I want. Even if I wasn't really motivated on Wednesday to go, I have it as I'm being disciplined and have it as part of my plan, so I go. So those are the 5 areas that we want to check in on around why we're not getting certain things done. And again, if you watch the stress management video, I go into all of that. Next, let's get into things around nutrition and meals and cooking. So let's start with grocery shopping. I keep a running grocery list on my phone. You can also keep one on your refrigerator, where as soon as I realize something's running low, I go to that list and I add it, because what I know I will do is forget any and everything that I need when I go to the grocery store. Even if I want to, even if I make a grocery list before I go, if I have to kind of be on the spot and make the list, I am guaranteed to forget something. So instead, I just keep this running list where I just add things so that when I do go grocery shopping, I don't have to think about it. Everything I need is already on that list. So it's in my phone notes, but you could also do it on the refrigerator. Just keep in mind, you're going to want to take the piece of paper with you or take a picture of your dry erase board on your refrigerator or whatever when you go. So I like to put it in my phone because then it's always there. That is a lifesaver for me. I can't even tell you how I don't stress about what I need to get at the grocery store, because I know there's a running list that keeps that all together for me. The other thing that I've been working on that I don't do as well just yet is keeping a list of, in quotes, go-to meals. So those meals that I have in some way mastered or they're easy for me, so that when I'm really not in the headspace or don't have the physical energy to think up a meal or things like that, I'm like, oh, these are meals that I've always enjoyed, and I know how to make without taking out a recipe book and thinking too hard about it. And I sometimes have to remind myself that they exist, making a good bolognese sauce first for pasta. I love it. It's always fulfilling and satisfying, but I honestly don't remember that that's an option oftentimes. So I have this list on my refrigerator of when I make a meal that I really enjoy and that I generally know how to make easily, I put it on that list so that I can look over there at the refrigerator at times and say, oh, what are some ideas that I have? Because part of my issue as well is that I need variety in the food that I eat. I get bored very easily, so I don't like eating the same things over and over again. So I need reminders of, meals that I can go to for variety, but they're also convenient and easy for me, and they're enjoyable to eat. So any of the meals on that list have to be meals that I thoroughly enjoy eating. Also, don't forget about grocery delivery. I was heavy into that through COVID and through initially moving to my current place. I now do no grocery delivery, but that has also been partially a deliberate effort to just get outside more. But grocery delivery can be very convenient and very helpful for us getting the things into the house that we need. This also brings me to meal prep kits like HelloFresh, or there's one that's actually cheaper, but it's also owned by HelloFresh, so it's pretty much the same thing, and it's called Every Plate, and I'll put those links in the show notes. I do utilize this service, but kind of on a monthly basis. I don't get weekly meals or things like that. Financially, I don't want to do that, but also I don't always want to, have these, feel the pressure of having to cook these meals where the ingredients are there. But I like the variety and the ease that these meal prep kits or cooking kits provide. So about once a month, every 5, maybe 6 weeks, I have a meal delivered or a couple of meals delivered, and that has been very helpful in streamlining my cooking process. What's also been fun about the meal delivery kits is that my oldest son really enjoys cooking with me, following the recipes and cooking with me. So it's also been helpful in creating some quality time, as well as teaching him some life skills. It's not that he can't help cook when I cook other meals, and we have done that here and there, but it is much easier when we have this written out recipe that he reads and things like that. So these meals really help us do that. Next, this brings us into meal prep. And I don't do any major formalized meal prepping. I don't prep my lunches for 7 days or anything like that. For me, that's a little too exhausting, and I don't think I would stick with it. And also, I have to have the storage containers and the space in the refrigerator and all of that sort of stuff. But I do some informal meal prepping in the way of recognizing where I struggle the most in keeping, eating meal or fueling my body in a healthy way, meaning making sure I'm getting all my meals and snacks and things like that. And during the work week, lunchtime is the tricky thing. Now that I'm regularly working out, I have no choice but to eat breakfast in order to get through my workout. So that has kind of the whole, I'm not eating breakfast thing has resolved itself a bit. Which, side note on that, I used to consider myself a breakfast person, but my coffee tends to fill me up except of course I end up being starving a little later into the morning. So I found myself not being motivated to eat breakfast, and then I have to get, my son to school and do all and get ready for work and all those things. So I would just kind of oh, let me just, eat something later. And no, that's not a good idea. So that was an issue, but now that I'm working out regularly, which I'll get to, I'm automatically eating some form of breakfast because I need to in order to get through my workout. But lunch is kind of like a touch and go sort of thing. Sometimes I was doing it in between sessions. So one of the things that I have altered is my schedule so that I do have a firm cutoff for most days, unless it's like an unexpected session or something like that, or a session I really need to fit in. I'm cutting off around 2 p.m. so that I have time to eat lunch before I pick up my son from school. So first of all, it's about me planning and scheduling that time to eat lunch. But the other issue was, what am I going to eat for lunch? If I had to think too hard about it, or if it was too complicated or took too long, I would end up just kind of grabbing whatever. So I did identify some key go-to lunches for myself so that if I don't have leftovers from the night before that I want to eat, I can have one of these three things. And it's either a salad, what I call a super salad, which means I put a lot of good stuff on it. I'm not just saying a bunch of lettuce and torturing myself. I put the things on it that I really love. Or a rice bowl, which oftentimes is using leftover meat that was cooked, leftover meat that was cooked the day before, and then just heating up pre-cooked rice rice that I had already cooked, and then cut up any vegetables, add some hummus or some sour cream, a nice dressing, and I have a delicious rice bowl. Or very recently I started prepping stuffed peppers. So I will make the stuffing, the rice, ground beef, seasonings and all of that mixed up, and cook that, and then I would put them in raw peppers, and then I would freeze the peppers. And so then I could just take the pepper out of the freezer and pop it in the oven and have it for lunch or even dinner. As we speak, I'm heating one up for dinner right now. And then I can throw some vegetables on the side, and then I have a meal. So those are 3 go-to lunches for me that I'm able to easily prep or prepare. With salads, cutting up the toppings for the salad the day before or so is very helpful to me, because one thing is I get very lazy about all of the steps of making a salad. So it's just recognizing where your roadblocks are and doing things to address those. And so this is one of the ways that I'm helping myself make sure I get all of my meals. Also, I've been wanting to make sure I get my proper amount of water intake, and I've identified that to be a certain amount. I have this water bottle that has 24 ounces, so I pretty much need to drink 3 of those a day. And I drink an 8-ounce glass of lemon water in the morning automatically. It's one of the first thing I drink. I kind of chug it because I know that I'm having a cup of coffee, and the caffeine, dehydrates you. So I try to make up for that coffee with the 8 ounces of water, which also just helps. Oftentimes I wake up, with my sinuses being dry and stuff like that. So having that water really helps. So with that, since I've identified the amount of water I need to drink, I have my water bottle, and I've identified as 3 of them. But also in my busy, hectic day, I don't necessarily remember how many of the, is this my first one or my second one? Have I drank that? So I put little hair ties around the bottle at the bottom of the bottle. So I'll put 3 at the bottom of the bottle. And every time I finish the bottle, I move 1 hair tie up to the top. And that's not a new revolutionary idea. Plenty of people do that. But that's something that I very recently started doing, and it's been very helpful to me. And I also think it's just more motivating to me to drink my water, because I kind of see myself, I'm I want to move that band up. But also this has a lot to do with me working out regularly now as well. So that's just a little tip that I've been doing to make sure I get enough water. And I've seen the benefits, of course. My skin looks a bit better. My eyes, I hadn't realized that I had realized they were not as white as they should be, but I hadn't really recognized the connection to drinking water, because I'm someone who generally does drink a good amount of water. I keep a water bottle with me that I keep filled up all the time. But before formally tracking my water, I hadn't realized the impact just in the color of my eyes, and now I'm noticing they're brighter, they're whiter, all of that. I do have to pee a lot, but hey, it just comes with the territory. Back to the idea of meal prepping. For my oldest son who's in soccer, 2 days a week we have soccer practice, and those can be kind of hectic for dinner and homework and all the evening routine stuff. So one of the things I do is I purchase 2 cheese pizzas on Tuesdays, and then I individually freeze each piece so that I can dish it out for the next 2 weeks for his dinner, either before or after soccer practice, where I don't have to cook, I don't have to think. He's limited in the things that he likes to eat, so it's not like I can just make whatever I'm making all the time and he'll really eat that. So I can just pull them out of the freezer and make them, and it has done wonders. It's made what I thought would be a bit stressful, the whole how do we fit soccer practice into life, it's made it very unstressful. Next, we have some parenting things that I do, or things in regards to parenting and the kids. So schedules. I'm big on checklists and typing things up just to remember things or not have to keep everything in my head. But also it's great at being able to give my older son visual cues and information to help keep him focused and organized as well. So I've typed up a morning routine and an after school routine for him so that he's clear on what the process is. Okay, in the morning, wake up and get dressed and brush your teeth, eat breakfast, all that sort of stuff. And after school, it's getting your snack and doing your homework and those sort of things. So we don't necessarily have that posted up and where he looks at it each day or anything like that. But whenever there's maybe a change to our routine, I'll type one up so that we can all be clear, because there might be times where he pushes against that, and I'm okay, but this is the routine, this is where it always is. And also sometimes it can help motivate him to follow through on the routine because he gets to check off the things that he's done. So sometimes typing up the morning routine, the after school routine. I did one when we started soccer because that changed our schedule a bit in the evenings. So this is what we're going to do first, and this is what we're going to do after soccer, and all that sort of stuff. That's very helpful for both of us. It keeps both of us organized. We're also now doing for him, which is essentially a chore chart, but actually we've made it, I call it his timesheet, because he asked me one day, what can kids do to make money before they're old enough to have jobs? And I was like, dun, 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 we call them chores. And so his one chore right now is to make up his bed each day in the morning, and then he checks it off on the chart, and he gets 25 cents for every day that he makes up his bed. And at the end of the week, he gets his, in quotes, paycheck. And then we talk about what portion of that does he want to put into savings and what portion does he want to keep for spending. And so it's taken the chore chart and made it way more motivational and more beneficial to just learning life skills, learning about work and what we get paid when we work and don't get paid when we don't. And we're talking about the idea of a promotion, of adding another chore to the chart once he's mastered this current chore. So this has been very, very beneficial and helpful. And I don't have to fight him to make his bed. So it's very helpful to think about what are the life skills I want him to learn that we can start instituting as chores and pretty much his job. And it helps him make money, but also learn the concept of saving and spending money. Do you like what you're hearing? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Want to help the pod? If so, please know it's greatly appreciated, and I welcome you to support the Bitter to Better podcast however you can. Might I suggest a few options? First, please rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or whatever platform you choose. Next, how about sending this podcast to one friend who you know could use it? This way, she can't say you've never given her anything. If you're really riding with me, talk about the show on social media and tag me. I'm at Tracy Panak on Instagram. And lastly, if you ever use any products or services I mention in the pod, can you tell them Tracy Panak from the Bitter to Better podcast sent you? Please and thank you. I make sure the boys have a calendar in their bedroom so that things that are important to them are written on it. So soccer practice, soccer game, play dates, when there's no school, certain loved ones' birthdays, any event that we're going to go to that they're going to be a part of. That's all written on their calendar where they can see it. And of course, it's helping to build skills around, knowing the days of the weeks and, months and all of that sort of stuff. It starts, the process of looking at organizing and scheduling and things like that. Something that I'm wanting to start for myself and the kids is picking a day, so probably Sundays, that is hygiene, self-care stuff. Or grooming, that's what it is, grooming. So making sure I clip their nails and clean their ears and things like that, because those are things that easily go by the wayside for me at times. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how long has it been since your nails have been clipped? And they have like claws and stuff like that. So I'm like, if every Sunday I make sure to just do a check of fingernails and toenails, okay, we're all set. And ears, okay, we're all set. That's something that I'm wanting to start. I realized it will help me not have this frantic, like, oh, it's been so long since I've done these things. So that's something that I'm starting to institute. And as I say this, I need to actually write it on my calendar on Sundays for at least the next couple of months until it becomes routine. Things around kids' recreation has been important for me because I'm like, okay, I want to make sure they're getting good socialization and physical activity. And this is come up more so for my older son at this time, and so come up more for my younger son as he gets older. But so I've focused on play dates and just kind of reaching out with a certain regularity to other parents to get kids together. There's also, back to my list, I created this list of after school activities that me and my son can do as part of like helping him decompress from the day and stuff like that, but also giving him reasonable options of things for us to do. Like we can't always, go out and do something big after school or things like that. So I have a list though of possibilities. So it says like board games, Pokemon battle, hide and seek. I don't know. There are a bunch of other things on there. At one point before he started soccer, we would like kick the soccer ball around in the house a bit. But these things where it's like, after he gets home from school, we can engage in them together. And sometimes I have sessions after he gets home from school. So stuff I can do in between getting home and starting my sessions. So that has helped to make sure there's more of a built-in quality time between us, because there are times where I'm so hunkered down in work that like I'll get him home, get him set up with his snacks, stuff like that, and then kind of go and get into my work. And I've wanted to be more mindful about giving him that quality time if he wants it after school. Sometimes he's fine to do his own thing, but other times he wants us to join in something together. So I'll tell him, hey, pick something off the list that you want to do today. That's been helpful just to make sure I get that time in there for the both of us. So then there's sleeping, kids and sleeping, the dreaded kids and sleep. So on the weekends, that's when I have my 3-year-old. So first of all, he's 3. So what is sleep really? And so I realized that I saved myself a lot of stress by allowing my older son to sleep in the living room on the trundle bed that pulls out from under the sofa on the weekends when his brother is here, because I was concerned about, so my 3-year-old goes down to bed a little bit earlier than my 8-year-old. And so then when it was time I would put my 3-year-old to bed, and then when it was time for the 8-year-old to go to bed, they share a room, they have bunk beds. So of course, then I was concerned about waking up the 3-year-old. Now, granted, I started this a good year or so ago. So they were younger, and I think now my 3-year-old sleeps a little more soundly. So I don't think I'm as concerned now about the possibility of waking him up, but it's just become a routine now, and my oldest really likes it because it's the weekend. I allow him to watch TV longer out in the living room, and it kind of becomes a fun night for him. But what I'm saying here is that wasn't my original plan. That's not what I wanted things to be. I was like, they have a bunk bed, they can sleep in the room together, all that wonderful stuff. But then I realized it was either try to stick to that plan and have the stress of potentially waking up my youngest and then the drama that comes from waking up a toddler, or to do this and kind of make it work for us. And so that's one of the things that I've done to save my sanity around kids and sleeping, is the oldest gets to sleep out in the living room, and while his younger brother sleeps in the bedroom on weekends. Also, I keep a couple of changes of pajamas in my bedroom, so that if in the middle of the night, my oldest, sometimes he might wet the bed on occasion, if he needs to change his pajamas, he doesn't have to go in their bedroom to do it, again, not wake up his brother, and he could just come in my room and do it. So that was a system I put into place once I realized that I had concerns about him going into the bedroom in the middle of the night and waking up his brother as he gathered clothes and stuff like that. So I make a point to keep a change of pajamas in my room. And then more recently, my youngest, just because he does wake in the middle of the night about twice. The first time he wakes up, typically he goes back down pretty easily if I walk him back to his room and I lay there with him. The second time can be touch or go, and it can result in him being up for another couple of hours and demanding breakfast at like 5 in the morning, or 3 in the morning, stuff like that. So I tried in the past, like, letting him come into my bed, but he kind of saw my bed as like playtime and would never go to sleep in my bed. But recently, the couple of times I've tried it, he has managed to fall asleep in my bed. So my sanity saving thing just being, shifting to allowing him to come in my room to go to sleep. Again, that's obviously not revolutionary. Children, since the dawn of time, have been sleeping in their parents' beds. And many of us know that it's one of the easiest ways to get them back to sleep. So that is what I've been doing around sleeping arrangements in order to save my sanity. For childcare, I have some, besides like using like my mom when she's available and things like that, and each of my son's fathers, at times when they're with their dads. And in terms of paid childcare, I use the Bambino app. In the past, I have used care.com to find a part-time nanny when I needed one. And then there's also like the Facebook groups for searching for childcare. But I really like Bambino because it allows you to find as needed, short notice childcare. And then when I make connections with some of the childcare providers on there, they become regulars who I reach out to when I, want to do a date night or have something, come up that, isn't planned out far in advance. But also when there are things that are planned out far in advance, it's been a great app for me in terms of finding some quality people. So I really recommend looking into that app. And again, it'll be in the show notes. Also, having like an emergency contact list on your refrigerator so that anyone who is caring for your kids has all the numbers and all the things. Obviously, if the kids have any allergies, food to stay away from, stuff like that. But who are the people to contact if they can't reach you? Have your address on that paper, have all those things there in case they ever need to call emergency services, things like that. I mean, obviously, that's like a basic a 101 type of thing, but it's something to definitely make note of and to update it over time if needed. So these are things that have helped, again, save my sanity a bit, give me more sense of security, and it's helpful for, being organized when I have a childcare provider come into the home to watch the kids. And then just a couple of random hacks. Obviously, like going from having an infant where you would always have like a baby bag, a diaper bag. I don't carry that around anymore, but I do need things like pull-ups, wipes, and maybe little plastic baggies. So I make a point to keep those things in my car. The wipes are just always useful for, grubby little hands and all of that. And then while my oldest was in soccer, we would bring a bag with like some of his soccer stuff, and I realized it made sense for me to keep a scarf and a blanket and maybe even gloves in there for myself, because during the earlier part of the season it was freezing out there. And so just already having those things packed in his bag it really streamlined that situation for me and allowed me to be more comfortable at these practices and games. And I didn't have to think or remember to bring those things with me because they were already in the bag. Also, one of the big things I do is I prep my kids' outfits, particularly my oldest son. So like for the school week, I hang the shirt and pants or shirt and shorts on a hanger for the week, so that we don't have to think about it. He just pulls them off the hanger and gets dressed. I'm not thinking about it every night or anything like that. So when I do laundry, I kind of just already put the outfits together and hang them on the hangers, and I can have them like laid out for like 2 weeks at a time. And that is hugely helpful for me. I do very little thought or very little rushing around to get his outfits together. Also, something that I recently started doing is my 3-year-old, he takes showers, and because to get him to sleep, I have to stay in the room with him, lay down with him. I tend to fall asleep when I'm putting him to sleep, which means that when I wake up, it could be like 10 o'clock at night, and I would find myself way too tired and exhausted to like wash my face, brush my teeth, stuff like that. And so I came to realize I have to do those things before I put him down to bed. So one of the ways that has been easy for me to do that is while he's showering, I will just like brush my teeth in the bathroom, wash my face and stuff while he's there. And that's something that like is so simple, but I just wasn't doing, and it was resulting in me like not completing my like hygiene process some nights, like when he was here, because I would wake up at some random time of night in his room and just go straight to my bed because I was exhausted. And so the idea of washing my face and brushing my teeth was just not a thing that I would do. So this has been a helpful, very small shift to my routine. So a huge sanity saver for me is having good sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene are the routines and habits that we have around our sleep to help us, the things we do to get good quality sleep. And so that can be things that you do throughout the day, such as making sure not to have too much caffeine. But it's definitely important about what you do right before bed. I say an hour before bedtime. I call that shutdown time. And I say, it's best to only be engaging in sleep-inducing activities. So things that are going to help bring you down physically, mentally, and start to prepare for rest. And so sleep hygiene is very important to me. I'm very mindful about trying to have only 1 cup of coffee, though there are plenty of times where I have more than that. And those are the nights where I reap the repercussions of that. But generally having 1 cup of coffee, before 2 p.m. sort of thing. But also I try to go into no screen time an hour before bed. I have the sleep function on my phone so that my phone automatically at 9 p.m. So I set it for 9 p.m., which is an hour before my intended 10 p.m. bedtime. And the phone stops notifications and things like that. I might have certain people that I put on a list whose notifications can come through, but my phone automatically goes into that function and is hugely helpful for keeping me off my phone right before bed because I tend to forget about it when notifications aren't coming through. And so I'm just really thoughtful about what I'm doing an hour before bed to help prepare me for rest. And the reason why good sleep is important is because I always say nothing is better with poor sleep. You're less patient, you're less focused. It's harder for you to deal with any of your life stressors when you have poor sleep or when you're starving, and you're hangry. But these very basic areas of self-care are important, and sleep is like a primary one. It starts with sleep. Everything that you do is impacted by how well you're sleeping. So it's just very important to have good sleep hygiene and to get good quality sleep. So with exercise, this recently changed for me because a few weeks ago I joined a circuit training gym, and so I've been going to the gym in the mornings anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week. So it's half-hour intense workouts. So that has put me on a very specific workout schedule. But before that, my general go-to for workouts was hula hooping, using the Supernatural app on my Oculus headset, and walks. And with that, I also realized I had to find ways to fit it in, particularly when my youngest son was here. So I would when it came to toning exercises like crunches and squats and stuff like that, there would be days where I would just kind of fit those things in increments just to get them in. So that's kind of the sanity saving thing there for me, where it's in order to not completely abandon working out, I would decide that, okay, well, I'll get the crunches in here and the squats in here and things like that. Right now, that's not an issue because I'm going to these classes. But back to my original point at the beginning of this episode about delegating things and stuff like that. I've delegated my planning and scheduling for workouts. I've delegated it to this formal program where I show up at certain times for the classes. So then I get my workout done and I don't have to maneuver in all these different ways around getting my workout in. And I have to say it's been wonderful. I'm actually seeing positive results because I'm being consistent, and I'm being consistent because I'm not, I'm able to go to these classes, when I have child free time and, one son's at school and the other's with his dad, things like that. But what I'm getting at is I'm not having to figure out where I'm going to fit this in. And I know that's one of the biggest, hardest things for a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of moms, a lot of single moms, to figure out where you get the workout situation in. And for me, before I joined this gym, I did purposely do my workouts at home because there was that piece too, where I just am not a consistent enough person with the gym for it to be worth me to, to pay that and then try to figure out how I was going to get out of the house, and get that and go to the gym consistently, knowing that, I needed childcare or things like that. Where with this gym, there are these specific classes at specific times where it's like when, the kids are in school. So great. I know I have to show up if I'm going to get my workout in because it's being led by a coach rather than me just showing up on my own. And so this has been very helpful to me. And I actually enjoy the workouts more than I thought I would. And I'm, really seeing results. Some sanity savers around my own personal care have been, for instance, figuring out what I want to do with my hair, because I hate doing my hair. It's time consuming, energy consuming, and I'm not particularly skilled at it. So with my natural hair, it's like doing wash and goes and twist outs and all these sort of things. And so I recently came up with like a routine and system. I am choosing to get my hair braided. So pretty much I keep my braids in for about 8 weeks, and then take it out for 2 to 4 weeks and then put them back in. So I've become more consistent with that so that I don't have to think about what I'm doing with my hair like every single week. The weeks where I don't have the braids in, I've decided I think that I'll be doing like getting a silk press, so that my hair is still styled for a couple of weeks, and then I'll do like a wash and go for like the rest of the weeks. But that has definitely helped me save time and energy. And so having this routine around my hair has been helpful. I get wax. I have waxing appointments like monthly and very consistently, and I book the next session while I'm at that current one. So that is good and consistent. My nails I kind of do as needed, so I'll polish them at home. But if I'm going away or want a certain type of like manicure, I'll go get them done professionally. And then there are the random life hacks that I'll do. If I know there's something particular that I need to make sure I do in the morning or walk out of the house with in the morning, I'm so good for putting something right in the middle of my like dining room table and then leaving it. So I'll put like a Post-it on the door with that reminder, just so I can see it as I'm walking out of the door. And also like keeping a spare key, like a spare house key, like with my mom or in certain locations, so that just in case, I've been locked in my place once and had the neighbor help me get in. So, having those sort of things in place in life. So there, on that note, these are just some of the things that have, that I've noticed I do over these months. I've been putting together this list. I'm sure there are more things, and I'm sure there will be more things. But these are things that I realized, oh yeah, these things do make a positive difference in your life, and they make it easier for you to live. And if you weren't doing these things, what would be different? And I definitely would be less productive, more tired, more frazzled. So I really encourage you to find your sanity-saving systems, and I hope some of these are helpful to you and that maybe you're able to institute some of them. But really it's trial and error and starting with noticing the areas where you are experiencing more stress or seeing a lot of road bumps. Is it stressful to get the groceries in the house or do cooking, or your exercise or how you eat or keeping your home clean or organized or things like that. Noticing where those areas are and then asking yourself what would make it different, what would be a beneficial a beneficial routine to create, or delegating it to someone or some service in some way. And just asking yourself these questions can go a long way in you developing these sanity-saving systems for yourself. Hey, by the way, I can be found in other places besides this podcast. Just search my name on YouTube and you'll find my channel. Subscribe for periodic how-to videos for dealing with breakups and mastering dating. That's right, I said mastering dating. It's a skill, ladies. I can also be found on Instagram at Tracy Panak. And lastly, I most encourage you to join my email list, where you get breakup and dating support delivered to your inbox, in addition to getting the most exclusive access to my programs and coaching services. My email list subscribers are the first to know when my coaching programs launch and the only people to get discounts when they're offered. As always, I'm glad we got into it and looking forward to next time.